right into the hostage crisis. Here's some background for the people. In the 70s, Iran was ruled by Pahlavi and the American government supported him. Prior to this, in the early 50s, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh began gaining power through public support because he disagreed with the Western influence in Iran. In 1953, the CIA helped overthrow Mossadegh and put Pahlavi back in power. Pahlavi and America kept their good relationship, but Pahlavi was criticized by his people for living enriched while the majority lived in. By 1978, Iranian opposition leaders organized protests of Pahlavi's policies. The exiled Islamic leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, began to gain popularity among Iranian people. December 1978, Khomeini urged people to defy Pahlavi's orders by having public demonstrations. This gave Pahlavi two choices: to surrender or restore order by using his military. By January 16, 1979, Pahlavi stepped down and fled to Morocco. February 1st, 1979, Khomeini returned to Iran and was greeted by millions of his followers. Less than 2 weeks, he assumed power, announcing the creation of a new fundamentalist Islamic State. He labeled the U.S. as the Great Satan. When Jimmy Carter allowed Pahlavi to travel to America later that year for cancer treatment, their hatred grew. Furious students gathered in the streets, raising their fists and shouting, "Death to America," assuming the U.S. was trying to secretly restore the Shah to power. Now, the problem was, November 4th, 1979, Iranian students seized the American embassy and held 52 Americans captive. The solution. In order for the hostages to be released, America agreed to release $8 billion of Iranian assets, and they promised to avoid intervening in Iranian's conflicts. January 19, 1981, the two signed an agreement. To be petty, the Iranians did not release the hostages till the next day, which was the inauguration of Reagan.
So it's time to talk about my favorite subject, dancing. In the 80s, we had this new thing called b-boying or breakdancing boying, you know. It came from the 80s new hip-hop culture, which sampled old beats and funky beats like James Brown, and they had this certain movement to it. And you know, b-boying was now a way of fighting. They didn't really get their hands because of the violence that was going on with the crack epidemic. And you know, they had their own style. They was spinning on bats, looking like helicopters, doing just the flyest guy, you know, who can have the best dance moves. On the West Coast, we had what they call electric boogaloo. See, most people get electric boogaloo mixed with b-boying, but if you tell any New Yorker that breakdancing is b-boying, they'll kill you. B-boying was sacred. B-boying was a New York thing, came from hip-hop. Out on the West Coast, we had the electric boogaloos, which was dancing like a robot and moving around like techno, as you would say. And then we got movies like Breakin', Beat Street. All these movies contributed to the new hip-hop, b-boying, electric boogaloo culture. And now we even consider electric boogaloo and b-boying all part of breakdancing.
Horror movies during the 1980s were huge, and there was at least one movie that came out during every single year of that entire decade. Although horror movies like Psycho and Carrie came out before this in the 60s and 70s, it comes nowhere close in topping what was accomplished in the 80s. Horror movies during this time were considered the scariest thing you could watch, with most of them, minus a few, being deemed as rated R before they hit the theaters. Famous movies include Gremlins, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and The Shining. My favorite during this time had to be the Friday the 13th series. With a total of 10 movies that stretched all the way into the early 2000s, this movie franchise made millions off of every single movie that they put out. The very first movie had a budget of $700,000, which is nothing compared to the near $60 million that they made in box office. This was a trend seen from many scary movies during this decade. No matter what their budget was, horror movies always managed to surpass that tremendously in the box office and make a great profit. Some of these movies were the very first appearances of evil characters that got reused even to this day. Jason from the Friday the 13th series, Chucky from Child's Play, and Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street series all made their first screen appearances during the 80s and became favorites for the genre across the world.